afternoon Mechanics Chess Social. I'm Abel Talamantes, the chess director of the Mechanics Institute. And we have Dr. Judith Starre, which is the general manager of the club. And this is a very special afternoon because this week we have mechanics leadership with us, and joining us. Whoop. Did not need that. We have mechanics leadership, and when we talk about the Mechanics Institute, the Mechanics Institute is a lot more than a chess club, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. Joining us is Mechanics Institute Executive Director, Kimberly Scrafano, and Grandmaster Patrick Wolff, who is a Mechanics Institute trustee, and he's the chair of the chess committee and the CFO. Welcome to both of you. Thanks for kind of joining.
Thanks for having me.
Sure, thanks for having us.
So one of the things we wanted to do, and later on at about 12:30, we're going to have the other members of the chess committee, which will be FIDE Master Jim Eade, FIDE Master Mark Pinto, and Mike Hilliard. Patrick Wolff is also on that committee, obviously. And then we'll talk a little bit more about mechanics chess history when we do that. But for this first half hour, I think we're going to focus on the Institute itself. But before we jump into that, Kimberly, you're kind of the new executive director of the Institute. And you came from a background of working at an organization that did a lot of good things. Can you just tell us just briefly where you came from and then what attracted you to the Mechanics Institute?
Sure, great. Yeah, I've a history. My career has been really focused on nonprofit work, and so that's sort of the sector that I come from. I have a background in doing workforce development and as well as fundraising for different organizations, public health, and sort of looking at sort of disadvantaged communities. What really attracted me to mechanics was its history, it's the vitality of it, and also I think there's so many opportunities. In the other jobs I was working, even though sort of culture, it wasn't a cultural organization in and of itself, a lot of what I focused on was creating partnerships between things like museums and families who maybe have never been to museums, or libraries and folks who felt intimidated by going to libraries. And so really that piece has always been integral to what I've been doing. And so I fell in love with mechanics really quickly. And I think what we do in our library, in our chess room, and then out in the community is just really phenomenal. I'm proud to be part of it.
And Patrick, you're somewhat of a legend in U.S. chess. You're a two-time U.S. chess champion. What is your tie to mechanics, and how did you come to be a part of it?
Well, I guess my tie to mechanics is mechanics is the very first way I came to know San Francisco. I mean, the very first time I visited San Francisco about 30 years ago for the Pan Pacific International, which was hosted by the Mechanics Institute. I actually got to play former world champion Mikhail Tal in the actual Mechanics Institute. So, I fell in love with San Francisco then, and the Mechanics Institute I really enjoyed, visiting and getting to know. When I moved to the Bay Area for the first time in 1999, and thereafter I would come to the Mechanics Institute, chat with people, go over chess games and so forth. And it's just always been a place that I've loved. And as I got to know the MI better, I was invited to join the board of trustees, which I very happily accepted several years ago. And then I got to know the entire institute. And of course, I think of it for the chess, or I have thought about it for the chess, but it's a lot more. It's a cultural institute, and in particular, we have a terrific membership library. And I've also gotten to watch and participate in some of the events that we have. So it's just a great place in San Francisco. And it feels the same to me from 30 years ago as it was today, even though, of course, it also evolves and changes. Like, for example, all the online stuff that you're doing and that we're doing more to get out into the neighborhood. But it's both sort of dynamic and changing, and at the same time, kind of an oasis of history and what's the word I'm looking for? Well, just an oasis of sort of history.
A haven.
And culture. Yeah, a haven. That's a good word.
And we're going to touch on something you just said about, kind of like what it means just for people in the city. But yeah, I do want you to know that in last week's newsletter, we actually published your victory against Mikhail Tal from that tournament, and we had Nick annotate it. So so we showcased you to all our readers. Okay. So one of the things that's really attractive for me to think about is that I know the Mechanics Institute, like I said in the beginning, was founded to give opportunities to kind of like the everyday working people, at least give them the same access to the education so that they can better themselves. The people that weren't elite and rich that, had the resources. I think like the Mechanics Institute, even now, as different as we are from 1854, we represent that in the things we do. So, for example, in the chess, we offer our free classes for kids, for women and girls, and just for regular players. And even in our events, we the entry fees we charge makes it accessible to people, and we've even given scholarships to those that have asked that we're in need of that. And even like our events, with our author events and our library, I mean, the membership is like so affordable for kind of the beauty of the library that it is, what it offers. What do you think about that in terms of kind of maintaining kind of the vision of what it was founded upon, and kind of how we're carrying that through, even with, today and with all our technology and everything? For Kimberly.
Sure. You're breaking up a little bit, but I think I can mean just a bit. For me, I think, if you look at the history of mechanics in general, they started in Scotland and the UK. And basically, most of them sort of transitioned into becoming sort of educational institutions. And MI has its own, that history as well. We were instrumental. We were the first library on the West Coast, in addition to being the oldest continuously operating chess room in the country. We helped found and helped, shape, I think, some of what happened with the San Francisco Public Library. We were initially helped found the University of California. So we definitely have a very rich history in terms of, the educational field. And I think particularly now, as more and more people are, finding themselves looking for things, a lot of people are stuck at home, and, as much as we can offer, I think, to folks remotely right now, in all areas, whether it be chess or author events or classes, or even just opportunities for people to connect. I think we're really still fulfilling that initial mission of creating these educational opportunities in an equitable way for folks who, at the time, not everyone could, go to a library or take classes. It wasn't like today where you could take a class after work. If you were sort of an artisan or, a working class person, you are often really, slated for that position. And so the Mechanics Institute fulfilled that gap, and we're hoping that we can continue that same vitality and necessity that we filled then.
And Patrick, so in making some recent transitions, we've been doing a lot of online activities. So a lot of our tournaments are now online, but other departments are also offering online services. Events is doing online with their Cinema Lit. I know Taryn, who's our strategic partnerships person, she's doing author and literary events online. What do you think of that? Just as a trustee and observer of having the board support and kind of making this online transition, and how do you see that continuing?
Well, I mean, I applaud it. I think the future of our institute, I think, is going to be determined by our ability to provide both the services and the community, as well as the access to information and knowledge online and digitally. I mean, I think we have our location. We've been in the same location for over 100 years. We have the physical library, which is a really lovely place, and that's obviously not going to go away. I mean, this is almost, I guess, this is the most extreme case one could possibly imagine of an interruption to that kind of physical tangible place, but I don't think anybody imagines that we're going to stop wanting to go places and be physically with other people. But it's also very clear that it's not just the convenience of having access online, it's the quality and the quantity of information and interaction that's available online that you can't get in the physical. So that it's not just a substitution, it's a whole different area. And so all the things that you mentioned, I think, are really important. And I think there's much more coming. And I think that's really the future of our ability to project ourselves into the community. So yeah, I'm a fan.
Oh, that's fantastic. And Kimberly, you've you kind of really got thrown into it. I don't think you've even been a year here, and you've had to deal with a global pandemic, keeping the MI alive and surviving, while at the same time, learning its history and really becoming a part of it. And you've done an absolutely amazing job, and kind of like, in managing sort of the different departments. I know, like, for example, chess is kind of, like, there's not a lot of places where chess has its own department among, other operating parts. Like, what's that been like for you in terms of kind of managing just wholly different areas, but finding that thread of unity in all of them and trying to come up with solutions?
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, and it's been, I think the process, it's been a great learning opportunity. I've really enjoyed it all, but I think it's also the strength of the team. I think we've got some really, every single person that's been involved with MI that I've met, whether it's a member or a staff person or a trustee, is just, had so much passion for the place. And that's clear in the chess department. And it's also clear that there is so much dedication to making sure that folks, particularly now, can access all the same things that you've been doing. Like and I have to say, from my perspective, from the MI perspective, seeing the chess department hosting events every night has been amazing, and I think really inspirational for the rest of MI as well. And it's really enabled us to, get our author events and writing events and classes, and even our knit club is online now.
Yeah, great.
I think it's been a really great team effort, and so I really defer sort of the success to how strong the team has been and how collaborative everyone has been.
Now, I just want to give a shout out to Judith, because Judith's been a great resource for other departments and kind of helping with Zoom, but also, facilitating and being a moderator and things. So thank you, Judith, for helping all the people jump online and get on board with that. It's been an amazing thing to happen. So Patrick, you were ED for like about a half a year. How was that experience, and kind of like what you're seeing with the changes, kind of like a different, different problems coming out of a different time compared to, the issues that you had to kind of deal with. How do you see that difference and just kind of the evolution of the Institute as a whole? I mean, you've been around the Institute for quite a while. How have you seen MI changed over that time, and how are we going forward?
Well, I guess just to fill in sort of the viewers on that. So about a year and a half ago, our former executive director moved to a different, found a different opportunity, and we were looking for our next executive director. And we're very, very fortunate that we found Kimberly, and Kimberly came on board. But there was this sort of intervening time while we were interviewing candidates and interviewing Kimberly and so on and so forth. And so during that roughly 3.5 to 4 month period, I agreed to step in and serve as interim executive director. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I learned a ton, as you might imagine. I mean, among other things, I came to appreciate how I didn't know anything as a trustee, and so that's given me a certain amount of humility in terms of understanding all the work that goes on and sort of a regular basis. It's also given me a tremendous appreciation for the job that Kimberly is doing, which we're all very, very happy about. But in particular, I must say, I'm glad it's not me dealing with the extraordinary set of challenges that she has on her plate right now with this global pandemic. That must say that's not one any of us saw coming. I guess to answer your question, I think that I think that the Mechanics Institute is in the process of evolving. I think, for example, the many changes in the chess department that you and Judith have brought are an example of that. I think it's all for the better. I think at the same time, we were facing the challenge beforehand of evolving, and when you're a bastion of tradition, and you have this sort of deep sense of permanence, and yet at the same time, you have to change and evolve, like that carries its own, sort of sets of challenges. What do you want to change? How quickly? What do you want to keep? And so forth. But now, I mean, it's clear that partly that change is going to be accelerated, which probably in the end will be for the good, but it will carry a lot of trade-offs and difficult decisions, which we're all going to make and do and make in the best way we can. And that will carry its sets of challenges. Now, Mechanics Institute's been around for 165 years, and we've seen lots of changes before. I mean, fortunately, we haven't had a massive earthquake destroy our headquarters, which is what happened last time when we had to break ground and build a new building. So, every generation faces its challenges. Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of how you have to roll in this world. Now, one big advantage that we have, which I've also really came to appreciate during my time there, is the permanence that we have. Not just the fact that we've been in the city for 165 years, but that we have financial security, that we have a loyal set of members who've been with us for many years, who know us and appreciate us, that we have staff that, you're a baby able, and Judith, having been here for maybe sort of a year and a half or so, but we also have staff that have been with us for many years and carry a lot of knowledge and understanding. So we have a lot of assets. So I'm very optimistic about the future, but the future is dynamic. And I guess it's never been as dynamic as it is now, which once again highlights the fact that I'm glad that Kimberly is the one in the hot seat and not me anymore.
One of the things that attracted me to the place, not just as a chess player, someone in the chess business, was, the mechanics is the mechanics, but it did seem like a place where people could spend, a dozen years or even more there. And that's attractive because it tells me that it's a place that people love and feel good about being a part of. And I just want to give a shout out to our viewers. And we have a question in the chat to Patrick. Someone's inquiring, was anyone shocked when you defeated Mikhail Tal at that Pan Pacific?
I think he was.
Besides Tal himself?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I obviously Mikhail Tal had a more illustrious career than I did. But at the time when we played, I don't remember what our relative ratings were, but I mean, I think he was probably a little bit higher rated than I was, but we were relatively close, so it wasn't crazy. I did have white, but I can't say whether anybody was shocked. But for some reason, I have a pretty good career result against former world chess champions. Part of the secret to that is to play them when they're really young. I played Anand at the World Junior Chess Championship, I think when he was 14 or so, and beat him, and never beat him after that. But I never lost any tournament games to him either. We had, I think, 2 draws, if I remember correctly. So plus score against Anand, although my blitz score against him is about 0 and 100. So he's taken his pound of flesh. But I don't know. It was a good game. I don't know if anybody was shocked, but I was.
So Kimberly, when you were interviewing for the position and the department directors got a chance to meet you, one of the things that really, really stood out for me was the fact that you had mentioned that you had a child that has done chess camps. So I thought that was very cool. So how has that been, sort of integrating, a place that has kind of chess history with your own children's love of learning chess?
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think when I first started, we were on a broadcast, and we came to watch
That's
the
right.
TNM, which was really
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah.
And he's 9, so he's not quite, he's not playing at that level, but he's loved it, and he's done the MI camps and everything, and he's always had such, I started to get a second hand, although I don't know how reliable 9-year-olds are at communicating quality of programming, but he really likes it, so that's really important to me. And one of the sort of unintended consequences was, I think it put a little wrench in his relationship with his grandpa, with whom he plays chess all the time, because just a couple months ago he beat him for the first time, and that was a little challenging
Fantastic.
from a family dynamic perspective.
That happens. It happens in chess.
It's like you aspire for that to happen, or you want that to happen.
Yeah.
So this question to Kimberly, I mean, what is it like, kind of interacting with the members? Because one of the things about the Institute is that you start to learn and interact with kind of the patrons, whether it be people in the chess room, people that come and visit the library, people that participate in the events. I mean, you really have a very different mix of people.
Right.
What has that been like, just kind of getting to know the crowd?
Right. That to me is actually one of my favorite parts, is getting to know sort of all the folks who make the family of mechanics. It's been really, I've loved going to the chess events and to different events, and just even going into the library and sort of seeing who's there. I mean, because it does really have a feeling of community, which is something that I think, makes people love MI. They walk into the library and it's or the chess room, and then there's this historic feeling, but there's also this feeling that there's some camaraderie and folks with whom that people can share ideas or collaborations or play a game of chess or listen to a great talk. So that, to me, that's been really actually my favorite part, is just getting to know everybody that's part of mechanics.
And I guess this is for Patrick and Kimberly. I mean, what is the dynamic like in terms of kind of the board's relationship and responsibilities to the Institute as a whole? Because there have been times in the history where, for example, I think chess was under attack, 50 years ago or something, and then sort of the board served to kind of rally and defend that. Or whether it be dealing with city ordinances and having the board come, what is that like? Because it seems like really the relationship between the board and the executive director really come together in moments of need and kind of produce some high-powered political influence.
Kimberly, why don't you take that one?
Both sides. Do you want to answer that?
I think that MI is an interesting organization because we have two sort of very different pieces that come together. You've got the library and the events, and they are separate to some degree, but I think to a large extent they're very connected, right? A lot of the events that we have are author talks, or they are somehow essentially library-like events. I mean, we don't have rock concerts or something like that, right? So and then we also have the chess room, and the chess was written into the charter of the organization, and that's very unusual for a mechanics institute, right? I mean, there are, as Kimberly was saying earlier, there are mechanics institutes around the world, but I'm not aware of others that have such a deep heritage with chess. So as a result, the trustees who come on board, who serve, they often tend to be more sort of knowledgeable about one side or the other. Certainly when I came on board, I was much more knowledgeable about the chess side, and I really came to learn about and appreciate much more deeply the library, both for my tenure as a trustee and, as you pointed out earlier, when I served as interim executive director for a while. And so I think it's very natural that there are some trustees who sort of think more about the library side of things, and some trustees who think more about the chess side of things. But we all come together to serve the Institute and love the Institute, and so there, as is natural, I think there are some people who take an interest in some aspects and some who take interest in others. But but it's something that we all come together for the health and the vitality of the Institute as a whole. And having said that, that's a great note for me to end on. As I was telling you, Abel, I'm going to have to hop off for a little while, but I hope to come back a little later on. I know that there were some other folks from the chess committee who should be joining momentarily. So tell them
and we'll be here, same link.
Same bad channel.
Yeah, same bad time, same bad channel.
All right, thanks, Patrick.
Okay,
thanks, Patrick.
Talk to you later. Bye.
So we'll continue here with our executive director, Kimberly Scrafano. You have an interesting background. I've come to learn as I learned a little bit about you. You worked at the Ninth Circuit, I think, but you also you have your own practice. You've done a lot of studies in Chinese medicine. Is that accurate? That be right?
Yes. Yeah,
that's like super cool
now with all the public health stuff going on.
Or just kind of taking self-care, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And joining us here is FIDE Master and Chess Committee member and MI Trustee Jim Eade. How's it going?
It looks like I am Kimberly now, according to my name.
Yeah, we'll fix the names on that. It's on it.
Around,
Yeah, kind of trying out other bodies. Mark Pinto may not be able to join. We do expect Mike Hilliard to be on. So welcome, Jim. Thanks for joining in. And Jim, you were the chess director for a few years. You were that was right before John Donaldson. Tell us a little bit about when you were chess director, kind of what were you facing at that time? What was the Institute like when you were serving in that capacity?
Yes, thanks for that opportunity to talk about the old days, because Max Wilkerson was the longtime executive director, and he was doing a wonderful job, but he retired. And both Mark Pinto and myself approached John Donaldson to replace Max. Yeah, but John had to settle in the state back in Philadelphia, and he just it wasn't the right time for him. So I kind of filled in, and I helped to hire Joan Arbel, who was also part of the staff, and she was more of the physical presence. What I did was the event management and the budgeting. But she did the Tuesday night marathons, as you guys are well aware. That's
as you are.
You have to be there into the late hours and shoo everybody out and close up and do all that kind of stuff. So Joan did all of that kind of work. But the events that we put on IM, GM tournaments, and those are the things that I handled. But it was the age of the dawn of the internet. So I was the first person to bring in a computer into the chess room. Now you guys are technological marvels compared to what we were at that time. That was the days when you would get these AOL discs in the mail all the time, the CDs.
I'm familiar with those.
Yeah.
I'm old enough, yeah.
AOL, there was wasn't there a movie with Tom Hanks that
You Got Mail, I think.
Got Mail, yeah, something like that. So that was the era where we couldn't do these live broadcasts. There was no Zoom, there was no anything but AOL chat, that kind of thing. But there were a phenomenon called rec.games.chess. And so we could post online and communicate with people around the world that way, but nothing like, no videos, no things like that. But I set up a match between Tucson Chess Club and the Mechanics, but we had to do that phone.
Sure.
They would make their moves, and we would do it and that kind of stuff. So it was a very different way of reaching out. Now you guys have done matches, including a match with 3 other clubs: St. Louis, the Marshall, and Charlotte. Yeah, and so that was just fantastic to watch. And it's kind of unbelievable for a guy my age to see you pull that off.
And actually, one of the really cool things is just in the hallway right outside the chess room, we have, a big picture of a telegraph match back in the day, right? And I was talking to Judith that we should see if we can put a picture of when we played Marshall. We had people bring their laptops to the chess room, and they played in there. And I thought that would be a nice picture to have right next to that, just kind of the evolution of everything.
That was the way we used to do it. We say we. Back in the 19th century, there was a match between England and France, and England played 1e4, and the French played 1e6. So that was called the French defense, which we know to this day as the French defense.
Was that the origin of that, or is that a
origin? Yes.
Is that right?
Yep.
Interesting.
Because that was that was published all around, because it was such a unique phenomenon then to play a telegraph match. And
wow,
you guys are breaking new ground.
That's actually big news in my opinion. That is the origin. I don't know if a lot of people know that.
Right.
That's actually like a big deal.
A French player would know that.
Yeah. So Jim, you had a career in finance, I think, prior, but you've been involved in chess, all your life, even at the USCF level. And now you've started your own foundation. Kind of tell us that, like what kind of led you to kind of like really being involved in the chess politics and everything going that, to having a career in finance, to kind of now at a point, joining the board of the Mechanics Institute and running your own foundation.
Well, Eade Foundation, eadefoundation.org, to plug myself. The general thing about chess is that it played such a big role in my life growing up as a teenager, having the normal teenage angst. And I thought it was a great way to meet girls. And turns out I was misinformed. And but before I realized my mistake, I'd gotten good at it. And so it's self-reinforcing. When you're good at something, you just keep doing it. And my sophomore year in high school, we finished third in the Western Mass Connecticut Valley Championships, and we had never finished. If we had qualified, we'd never finished higher than last place. So it was just this amazing thing. We had it published with a paper. The local paper published our team and our coach and all that kind of stuff. They had an erotic. Whoa! My junior year, we won. And so it was an amazing type of experience. And it's always led me to believe that team competitions are the most fun, because you have teammates, and you're all together playing another team. And chess is such a one-on-one sport that the team aspect of it kind of softens that.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing that, for those of you that play a lot of chess, there's actually not a lot of team competition that's possible in chess. But given the changes in online play of everything that's happening, it's actually created more opportunities to kind of reach out. Like, for example, we just played a team Club 64 from Modena, Italy. And that was just a fantastic collaboration. And something like that, as cool as it was, and to interact with the players and members, and even in organizing that, it's something that was always available, but it just didn't get done until we were forced to kind of, do something new, because we were not able to play over the board. So in a way, the current adjustments that we're having to do, actually, if you look at it the right way, it actually can lead to opportunities that, are actually really great that you wouldn't have acted on.
There are always silver linings. And, we just have to sometimes look for them. And you guys have been fantastic in providing the community, continuing the community of chess players in San Francisco. And because, as a former chess player, you just have to play chess. It's one of those things. You have to be able to go play chess. And now there's nowhere to go to play chess, but you can go online. Now, back when I started playing, that wasn't a possibility. So if this had happened in the 70s when I started playing, we would have been climbing the walls. But now we can log on and play.
It's funny that you say that, because in my story, I stopped playing chess at around 18. And then I restarted when I got into the business at, like 35 or 36. And even when I returned to playing, and even when I returned to playing after like 25 years, like separated, players that I knew when I was a kid playing chess, they were still playing and active. And it's like, it's in the blood. Like, you just have to do it. And that's why it was important for us when we kind of went to online. It was like really important for us to like wanting to keep the community together. And hey there. And one of the we're seeing this in all our departments too, in events and in the library, is that with being able to transition to online, there's an avenue for all of us to keep our communities together and interacting and engaging, because like they really need that the most right now. And so it's just kind of a pleasure to kind of experience that and be there. And I think we have right here, Mark Pinto has joined us. Hey there. So let's
background sound bothering you guys? I got to turn down the sound. Get the TV on.
No problem. And then is that Wisconsin Badgers?
Yes.
Coach Andrew Schley, who's in the chat, I'm sure he'll be very happy about that. So Mark, thanks for joining us. You're a member of the chess committee and you're a trustee, but you've also served as the executive director for a time. Tell us a little bit about that and just kind of your experience being part of MI, I think longer than anyone here that's in the broadcast.
Well, it was a different world back then. There was a lot of acrimony with both within the board and the membership, and I had put out a lot of fires. The business office was in terrible shape. Accounting methodology was horrible. The politics of the San Francisco area was kind of difficult at the time. And, I don't want to get into a lot of details, so we don't have time, but there was a lot of crazy stuff going on. The place was a mess. I'm very pleased with how things are going now, and I think we're in great shape, and I'm looking forward for a lot of positive things to happen out of this. We have a lot of adversity right now, but I look at this as an opportunity to improve what we're doing and more efficiently, and I think a lot of good things are going to come out of this.
Abel, I would like to jump in here and just say that I'm shocked that Mark is wearing a Wisconsin hat, because a Michigan State Spartan, and I don't know if anyone's tuning in that knows that. There seems to be some sort of conflict there, Mark. What's
Big Ten? I'm a Big Ten guy.
Pardon?
The Big Ten thing.
It's a Big Ten. Okay, I can get behind that.
So you can wear Michigan as well as.
Well, I won't wear Michigan. That's one I won't wear Ohio State, but the other ones I'm okay with.
And
I'm wearing a Wisconsin. It's time to drink a beer. It's hot outside. It's 84 up here.
It's got to, yeah.
Oh, wow. And I can't help but get curious. I see some guitars in the background. Do those have historic significance, or is that like a hobby of yours?
Yeah, it's a hobby.
It makes the dogs howl.
I may, yeah, at times. I may put up a video one of these times, play a couple songs, but I'm not ready for that yet. And I don't think the world's ready for it.
Hey, Mark, so now that I have you here, I have to ask you. So we just finished organizing the U.S. Amateur Team West. We're fortunate we were able to pull it off before the global closing of everything. But you have a rich history in the U.S. Amateur Team competition, particularly the East, which is the largest of them all. Tell us about kind of like your participation in it. I think you have a core group of teammates that you do every year. It's sort of kind of like the social thing.
I played in my first team championship 50 years ago, the first one down in Atlantic City. And Dennis Barry, who was the head of the Westwood Club, was the chief organizer and became kind of a big organizer in the USCF. And I've probably played in, I won't say 50, but I've played in probably 35, and both West Coast and East Coast. And I think our highest place was, my team won it one year, but I wasn't playing that year. and then we came in second one year. But it's a social event. It's not a serious tournament, and I've gone 6-0 and won the board prize before, but I don't play first board on that team. I was playing second board, so not as impressive.
Did they give you a clock for the board prize? Yeah, they gave me a
clock, which subsequently I lost, but it was more clocks. And I'm always going to tournaments and buying clocks because I keep on leaving them.
I remember Judith and I were on the broadcast at the U.S. Amateur West, and then Nick had asked, what was the prize, and then I remember Judith answering, "Well, it's a clock, but also the fame and the glory of winning."
Well, you make the cover of Chess Life if you win the.
Right.
Back in the day, there was only one tournament. Now that there's 4, they have a playoff, which is remote, but.
Right.
It's a great social event. You get to see people. I get sad because you go there and there's some people missing that aren't with us anymore. You get used to seeing the people and
including Dennis Barry.
Time marches. Same with the U.S. Open.
Great friend, and his passing was really hard for me to take, and but that's what happens. It's a circle of life, and we go to these tournaments and we see everybody the same. Looking pretty much the same, and then all of a sudden they're not there. It's hard.
Time marches on.
Yeah.
And the thing I've noticed, and I've heard from talking to Laura, who's our events director at Mechanics, is that she experiences the same thing in events where people for years and years and years go to the Cinema Lit events and the author events, and then they just don't. And but it kind of speaks to the special nature of what we do, that we exist and we participate in something that it's a part of people's lives, and that's what I kind of really love about the Institute, that that's a place where you really become a part of it, and when you're a member of it, you're part of that history, and that's something that you don't really experience at a lot of organizations.
But Abel, you might want to ask me about my Amateur Team East experience.
So, Jim, my next question is, have you ever played the U.S. Amateur Team East, and how did you do?
When I was on the board of the United States Chess Federation, we were having financial troubles, and we had an emergency meeting that coincided with the Amateur Team East. So my friend Tom Dorish and I played, and I played on board 1, and I did go undefeated. However, I did not win a clock. It was not because I did draw with Joel Benjamin, and who's a grandmaster, and so he nicked me for a draw, is the way I put it. My best win was over Victor Frias, who Mark knows, and a very, very strong player. So it was one of the best tournament results of my life. So the Amateur Team East is always high in my heart, but it is second to the Amateur Team West.
Just out of my own curiosity, Kimberly, when you're in board meetings, do they talk about chess history exactly like this, or do they stick to the business at hand?
Not so far, but Jim's new, so maybe he can bring that element to the board meeting.
Well, Mark and I will be sitting next to each other talking, and
right.
I think that what Patrick, I just heard the end of Patrick talking about the history of the mechanics, and since 1854, is built into the original charter. And I think it's partly because, the gold rush happened, and all of a sudden there was a need for mechanical equipment, and then there was the need for the arts of the mechanics to build the equipment and how to do it the best way. So it was an educational and cultural environment. And they considered chess to be part of the cultural environment. And in the United States, that has not proven to be true. And part of our task, Mark and I, from way back, has been to make it more of a cultural experience. Because, as Marcel Duchamp once said, not all artists are chess players, but all chess players are artists. Mm-hmm. And we really see that so much in the appreciation. At this stage of my career, I'm no longer a threat to anyone of any strength. And but I can still appreciate the game, the aesthetic beauty of those aha moments when you have complicated problems solved right in front of your face. And we see it all the time on our broadcast, Abel. It's like these games are so wild sometimes. You just kept, you just caught up in the moment of watching and appreciating the sometimes brilliant, sometimes tragic play that unfolds before our eyes.
No, and even in the newsletter, I try when we have those moments, and actually in this newsletter that's coming up, we had quite a dramatic moment on Tuesday with the final game to decide who would win the tournament with a draw that shouldn't have been. But like I like to put the link of that video and say, go to 2 hours, 28 minutes, and you're going to see some high drama. And I kind of wanted to touch on another point just in terms of kind of like human evolution. So Jim, so you've been a part of boards with the U.S. Chess Federation. And I don't know if Mark's, you've ever been in kind of like the leadership with the U.S. Chess.
I refuse.
Yeah. And actually that's sort of what I want to talk about is, you know, just in my conversation with you, I know you've chosen to kind of like separate yourself from that. And even when you're telling me about why you founded the Eade Foundation, it offered a significant alternative to that. Tell me a little bit of what that alternative is, because I think that that's something that's really beneficial for people, I know for us, to think about in terms of how we see the differences that we can make as individuals.
Is that directed at me?
Yeah, to you, Jim. Yeah.
Okay. You know, the Eade Foundation, I was on the United States Chess Federation's board. I was on the board of FIDE, the International World Governing Body. And then I was on the U.S. Chess Trust for 20 years. And the Chess Trust is a charity. And I was happy as a clam for 19 years because we were just doing good things and there was no politics. And the last year, the USCF tried to kind of overtake the trust and absorb it into itself. And I called it a hostile takeover, but that's just my humble opinion. And so I had to fight that battle. And then I realized, why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through this? Because I had 19 years of doing good work. Now, the thing that I saw, the U.S. Chess Trust, it was only U.S. based. So when I founded the Eade Foundation, I said it was chess without borders. And the mission was to increase chess literacy and chess excellence. Because I think if you allow people to be exposed and become chess literate, they can read and write chess notation, then the world of chess books opens up to them. And
like another language. Yeah.
You learn the language and then you can just read and write whatever you want. And so I sent sets and boards and other equipment to places like an orphanage in Uganda. A youth program in Zambia was only soccer, and now there's soccer and chess. And there was another program in Nicaragua that wanted to start playing chess, but they didn't have enough boards to have a chess program. So I sent them chess sets and boards. And it was like one of the things I started to feel like I found, you know, in this age of my life, I finally found out what I wanted to do. And it's, you know, when I was on the Chess Trust, for example, we had 15 trustees. So I had to count to 8 in order to see whether or not I could pass something that I wanted to do. And now it's just me.
Yeah, count to one.
What I always say
is veto power. So.
Easier to count to one, right?
Yeah.
You get to the point where you can control things and not have other people. The thing with the USCF, you know, not to belabor it, but these are people that weren't very good chess players. They weren't very good business people, and they weren't very good politicians. And they all had different motivations for being on it, but generally was self-promotion. And I just didn't want to deal with it. And you know, I saw a lot of funny business. I at one point I served as treasurer of the USCF, and I didn't do that very long because I just couldn't take the corruption. And you know, I think part of the thing with them taking over the U.S. Chess Trust had financial reasons for it, because they were in trouble and they don't know how to manage. I think it's a much better situation than it was when you were on the board, Jim. It's not a reflection on you. It's just a question of the quality of the people were a little bit better. You got rid of some of the, and it was also very New York centric. And a lot of people, there was a lot of conflict of interest. You know, people that ran tournaments and organized, run the USF, and they steered the business to their interests. It was just corrupt, and FIDE's even worse. So my philosophy was do something local on a smaller scale where you actually have some input, and to some extent you can control it and make sure that nothing bad happens. And you didn't have that ability with the USCF.
With my foundation, what I was able to do was hire people on my board that I knew and trusted and liked. And Mark is my treasurer. So, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, two women from Menlo Park who I know. And so it's collegial. And it's the way I first started out in chess organizations was with Cal Chess. And my friend Tom Dorsch was the president. I was vice president. And everybody was in the same boat and pulling their oars in the same direction. And I thought that was going to be my experience in the USCF, and it was not. It was one of the most degrading experiences of my adult life. And, you know, as Mark said, you know, FIDE's even worse. If you don't like the USCF, because these are people who, as Mark said, are not strong chess players, not generally successful in other aspects of their lives, and they found a position where they're important. And they are desperate to maintain that. So these are the types of egos you run into, and good people with good hearts and want to promote chess just draw back from it.
And Jim, we have a question in the chat. Have you reached out to the Sinquefelds in St. Louis, because they have a similar chess literacy program?
Yes, Mrs. Sinkfeld is really big on this, and she's done this. She's got a merit badge in the Boy Scouts now for chess. She's produced a free pamphlet. It's downloadable on the U.S. Chess Trust website to teach chess literacy. And I would say this about the Sinkfelds in St. Louis. They are doing it all. They are doing kids, scholastic chesses. They're doing you know, training programs for less talented people to become more talented, and they're bringing in the greatest players around the world to compete in St. Louis. St. Louis
just stick around. Usually benefactors tend to get pissed off and frustrated with the chess world and they leave, but I think they're in for the count.
Well,
that has the Girl Scouts too, by the way. I think she's on the board of the Girl Scouts of America, if I'm not mistaken. Jeannie is.
Yeah, well, I think she's been involved with the Boy Scouts, but I wouldn't be surprised to find out that she's been involved with the Girl Scouts as well. Yeah, she's a remarkable woman, I must say. Very impressed when I got a chance to spend time with her. And Rex is a self-made billionaire, and you know, he was an orphan, and so he was not given. He was not born on third base. Let's put it that way. I think thought he hit a triple. And he has, through his love of chess, he was a strong A player, I think, when he was active playing. And he still plays correspondence chess online. So he still really loves it. But he's one of those guys like Neil Falconer, who is a former trustee member, who just loved watching these great players come in and play. And he's just a big fan, you know, so.
And Mark, I'm sure there's more than one person that is curious about this. What kind of dog is that, and what is the name?
Well, this is a cat.
That's a cat.
This is an Oriental short hair, and he had a near-death experience the other day because the vet gave me the wrong syringe. He had his diabetes.
Oh, that's right.
I had
there it is.
Check him every day.
It was turned the other way, so I couldn't see.
Well, the dog that was up here the other day, you didn't see it, but we have a wolfhound. We rescue greyhounds and we rescue sighthounds. So we have a sloogie right now, a wolfhound, an Oswak. The heck is the other one?
That sounds like
a hard Polski, which is a Polish sighthound. And they're all relatively rare breeds. We're down to 4 dogs. At one point, we had 30 dogs on the property. That was because we sheltered them and found homes for them. But that was just, we're getting older. It's getting a little tough, and it's expensive. And I'm not working, so trying to play defense here a little bit. But my wife is insistent upon always having a dog around, and I can't imagine life without a dog or a cat.
Yeah, mine's sleeping somewhere over here.
the vets are very happy that we have them. Trust me, our vet bills are ridiculous.
Well, Judith is dealing with kids, teenagers.
Someone's got pets, someone's got kids.
Different ball game, But,
so, everyone, I think we're going to wrap it up. We did a last call for questions, but I think we're good. I just kind of want to, just from Judith and I, just kind of thank you all for the work you do. We know there's a lot of stuff that's behind the scenes that we're not privy to, but that kind of keeps us doing what we do, and just kind of thank you for all your work and kind of steering and navigating all of this. Mark, Jim, Kimberly, Patrick, just everyone, Mike Hilliard, and all the trustees. Mark tells me this all the time, that it's a thankless job that we do as organizers of events. And hopefully you don't feel that it's a thankless job what you all do. It's very much appreciated, and just thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Well, you guys are doing a great job as well, and I think we're at a good spot in the sense that I think there's a lot of camaraderie within both the board and the staff, and I'm looking forward. I think, like I said, I'm very optimistic, and I think great things are going to come out of this. I've made some suggestions. I won't reveal some of them, and Jim's got some great ideas, and if they get implemented and approved, I think it's going to be great. And I use this as an opportunity to improve what we're doing.
Yeah, I just want to also thank Abel and Judith for all that they do, and also to thank Kimberly for being supportive of something that you're not necessarily part of the community, and probably some of the things we talk about you can't relate to, but it's very important for the executive director to be supportive of the program that many people care so much about. And thank you for that support.
Absolutely. And you mentioned earlier, but my son goes to the MI camps and everything, so I have definitely a direct connection. I play chess too. Well, I know how to play. I shouldn't say I play chess. I should say I know the rules. Let's just put it that way.
You'll improve hanging out here. You wanna.
There's some osmosis effect.
And Kimberly's learning a lot about what we do, because I know for a fact she reads every single newsletter. So she is on top. She is on top of it. And just thank you for joining us. Thanks for everyone for watching. Tonight we will have our Friday night blitz at 6:30 p.m. It's for gold, silver, and bronze medals. So make sure to join.
No chess clock.
No chess clocks.
No chess clock yet. We'll see.
You need a hole in the head. I'm looking forward to it. I might play tonight.
All right. You should join in. Yeah. The kids will be coming for you, but come.
Along those lines, I got to tell you a story. We were talking about the U.S. team championship. Well, I played in the West a couple of years ago, and I was playing a 7-year-old Chinese girl, and she's a master, and her brother's a grandmaster, and she's going to be a grandmaster. And I'm still okay. I'm still a good player. And I played, and we drew, and she was probably a little bit better. And I offered her joy. She accepted. And then I see her skipping around the room after the game like a girl. And all the people were coming up and congratulating me for drawing with her, which is like, I'm a white master. I'm a FIDE master. Coming up congratulating me. So
she's the rock star. She's the rock star now.
I got a picture of Mark Pinto drawing an 8-year-old in Wisconsin, in Madison.
She's only 7. Let me correct you. She's 8 now, but she's 7.
Yeah, and and it was I put the caption as Pinto holds her to a draw.
And I'm told we're going to raid the St. Louis Chess Club, so we're going to send all our viewers to them. So thank you, everyone. Thanks for following the Mechanics Chess Session.
Stay healthy and stay safe.
You too.
Maybe we'll see you tonight. How do I get onto this thing, by the way?
I am going to send you the links right now.
Okay.
Guide you with everything. Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you.
Right. Bye-bye. And I think we're off.